Your brain is shrinking as you read this. Every single day that you maintain certain habits, you're speeding up cognitive decline at a rate that would genuinely shock you. Scientists have uncovered that specific behaviors can raise your risk of dementia by more than 60%. And the most frightening part is that millions of people engage in these behaviors every day without realizing the permanent damage being inflicted on their brain cells. A groundbreaking study published in the Lancet tracked over 800,000 participants across multiple decades and revealed that preventable lifestyle factors are responsible for nearly 40% of dementia cases worldwide. That means 4 out of 10 people struggling with memory loss, confusion, and even failing to recognize loved ones could have avoided it entirely. Right now, while you're reading this, your daily choices are either reinforcing a fortress around your neurons or tearing down the walls that safeguard your memories. What's truly terrifying is that the number one habit on this list can shrink your hippocampus, the brain's memory center, by as much as 1.8% every year. Researchers also found that people who regularly engage in this behavior show brain scans identical to someone 10 years older. Even more alarming is that this damage accumulates silently, often decades before symptoms appear, creating a ticking time bomb inside your skull that you can't see or feel until it may already be too late. You'll find all the research and medical studies linked in the description if you want to explore them further after watching. Before we begin, let us know in the comments how old you are and where you're watching from. We read and reply to every single comment, so drop yours below. Now, without further delay, let's get started. Habit number 6. Poor sleep quality. Your brain has a built-in waste removal system called the glymphatic system, which operates primarily while you sleep. Its job is to flush out toxic proteins like beta amyloid that accumulate during your waking hours. When you consistently experience poor quality sleep or get fewer than 7 hours per night, these toxins build up in your brain much like trash piling up on city streets during a sanitation strike. A study from the University of California, Berkeley analyzed sleep patterns and brain scans from 26 adults and found that just a single night of sleep deprivation increased beta amyloid accumulation by 5% in critical brain regions. Researchers also discovered that the less deep sleep participants experienced, the more toxic protein clustered in their brain tissue, especially in areas most vulnerable to Alzheimer's disease. Over time, chronic sleep deprivation creates a vicious cycle, where toxin buildup makes deep, restorative sleep even harder to achieve. The National Institutes of Health followed 7,959 people for 25 years and found that those who consistently slept fewer than 6 hours per night had a 30% higher risk of developing dementia compared to those who slept 7 hours. Sleep fragmentation, waking up repeatedly throughout the night, even briefly, is just as damaging because it prevents the brain from entering the deep sleep stages required for memory consolidation and cellular repair. During deep sleep, brain cells actually shrink by up to 60%, allowing cerebrospinal fluid to wash away metabolic waste that accumulates during the day. Without sufficient deep sleep, this cleaning process remains incomplete, accelerating neurodegeneration. Sleep apnea is especially dangerous because it combines poor sleep quality with oxygen deprivation, creating a perfect storm for cognitive decline. Studies show untreated sleep apnea raises dementia risk by 85%, with brain imaging revealing significant shrinkage in areas responsible for memory and decision-making. The connection between sleep and dementia is so strong that researchers can now predict cognitive decline risk simply by tracking sleep quality and duration over time. Now let's move on to something that happens while you're awake, but not truly present. Habit number 5. Chronic social isolation. Human brains evolved to be social, and meaningful interaction provides constant cognitive stimulation that keeps neural networks active and resilient. When you spend long periods isolated from others, your brain literally begins to atrophy in regions responsible for memory, emotional regulation, and higher-level thinking. A landmark study published in the Journals of Gerontology followed 12,030 adults over the age of 50 for a decade and found that those who reported feeling lonely had a 40% higher risk of developing dementia, regardless of how often they actually interacted with others. The key discovery was that perceived loneliness, not just physical isolation, triggers inflammatory responses in the brain that damage neurons and accelerate cognitive decline. Researchers at Florida State University analyzed data from 12,000 participants and found that socially isolated individuals experienced cognitive decline at twice the rate of those with regular social engagement. The reason is fascinating. Social interaction forces your brain to juggle multiple complex tasks at once, reading facial expressions, processing verbal and nonverbal cues, forming responses, and managing emotions. Every conversation acts as a workout for your prefrontal cortex and hippocampus, strengthening neural connections and promoting neuroplasticity. Social isolation also elevates cortisol, the stress hormone that, when chronically high, literally kills brain cells in the hippocampus where memories are formed. A study in the American Journal of Epidemiology tracked 2,249 women and found that those with the smallest social networks experienced 26% more cognitive decline over 4 years than women with larger circles. Even more concerning, socially isolated individuals are more likely to engage in other dementia-accelerating behaviors like physical inactivity, poor diet, and inadequate sleep, creating a cascading effect of risk factors. The loneliness epidemic has grown so severe that some researchers now compare its danger to brain health to smoking 15 cigarettes per day. What's especially heartbreaking is that many people don't realize they're lonely until the isolation has already caused measurable brain damage. By then, social anxiety and cognitive decline make reconnecting even more difficult. But there's something many people consume daily that may be even worse. Habit number 4. High sugar and processed food consumption. Your brain is an energy-hungry organ, using roughly 20% of your body's total glucose supply. But flooding it with excessive sugar and processed foods essentially poisons the very cells that rely on proper fuel. Chronically high blood sugar triggers a process called glycation, where sugar binds to proteins in the brain, forming advanced glycation end products that damage neurons and blood vessels. A study from Columbia University Medical Center followed 2,226 participants and found that individuals with the highest blood sugar levels experienced hippocampal shrinkage 6 to 10% faster than those with normal glucose levels. This effect appeared even in people without diabetes, meaning you don't have to be diabetic for sugar to damage your brain. Processed foods loaded with trans fats, excess sodium, and artificial additives drive chronic inflammation throughout the body. But the brain is especially vulnerable. Neuroinflammation directly kills neurons and blocks the formation of new neural connections. The Rush University Memory and Aging Project tracked the diets of 923 participants over 5 years and found that those following a Western diet high in red meat, processed foods, and refined sugars had cognitive abilities equivalent to someone 5.8 years older. Ultra-processed foods, now making up nearly 60% of the average American diet, are particularly harmful because they lack the nutrients needed to produce neurotransmitters and maintain myelin, the protective coating around nerve fibers. Studies show people who consume the most ultra-processed foods experience cognitive decline 28% faster than those who primarily eat whole foods. High sugar intake also promotes insulin resistance in the brain, sometimes called type 3 diabetes, where brain cells lose the ability to use glucose efficiently despite its abundance in the bloodstream. A study published in Diabetologia followed 5,189 people for a decade and found that individuals with type 2 diabetes had a 60% higher dementia risk, increasing with poor blood sugar control. Damage from poor diet is cumulative and insidious, with each sugary snack and processed meal contributing to gradual deterioration that may not appear until years later as memory loss and confusion. The next habit may surprise you because it involves something missing. Habit number 3. Physical inactivity. When you remain sedentary for long periods without regular movement, you deprive your brain of one of its strongest defenses against neurodegeneration. Exercise boosts blood flow to the brain, delivering oxygen and nutrients while clearing waste products. It also stimulates the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein that acts like fertilizer for neurons, supporting growth, survival, and new connections. A long-term study published in Neurology followed 876 participants for 30 years and found that those with low cardiovascular fitness in midlife had significantly smaller brain volumes later on, with brains appearing an additional 10 years older. Researchers found that even small increases in heart rate and blood pressure during low-intensity exercise tests predicted smaller brain volume decades later. Physical inactivity also suppresses neurogenesis, the creation of new neurons in the hippocampus, which is essential for memory formation and cognitive flexibility. A University of British Columbia study found that regular aerobic exercise can increase hippocampal size by up to 2%, effectively reversing 1 to 2 years of age-related volume loss. The minimum effective dose appears to be 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week, just 30 minutes, 5 days a week. Yet fewer than 25% of adults meet this guideline. Exercise also lowers inflammation, improves insulin sensitivity, enhances sleep quality, and promotes new blood vessel growth in the brain. Resistance training is equally valuable, triggering the release of irisin, a hormone that crosses the blood-brain barrier and activates genes involved in learning and memory. A study of 100 adults with mild cognitive impairment found that those who performed resistance training twice weekly for 6 months showed improved executive function and reduced brain atrophy. The best part is that it's never too late to start. Research shows cognitive benefits even when exercise begins in the 60s or 70s, though starting earlier offers exponentially greater protection. Think of exercise as a daily insurance policy for your brain, with each workout depositing protection that pays off in preserved memory and independence later in life. But even if you exercise, the next habit can undo much of that benefit. Habit number 2. Chronic stress and elevated cortisol. Persistent stress without proper recovery keeps cortisol levels elevated. While cortisol is helpful in short-term survival, chronic exposure systematically destroys brain tissue. It damages the hippocampus by killing neurons, blocking new cell formation, and causing dendrites, the communication branches between neurons, to shrink and retract. A Yale University brain imaging study of 103 participants found that those reporting the highest stress levels had hippocampal volumes 20% smaller than low-stress individuals, even after adjusting for age. Chronic cortisol overstimulates glutamate receptors, causing calcium overload that leads to neuron death through excitotoxicity. Stress also accelerates telomere shortening, the protective caps on chromosomes that regulate cellular aging, effectively aging brain cells faster at a molecular level. Research from UCSF found women with the highest stress levels had telomeres equivalent to someone 10 years older. Chronic stress also impairs the prefrontal cortex, weakening decision-making, impulse control, and emotional regulation, creating a feedback loop that worsens stress management. A long-term BMJ study following 6,895 civil servants for 14 years found that persistently elevated cortisol was linked to worse memory, reduced cognitive function, and a 14% reduction in total brain volume, especially in memory-critical regions. Chronic stress also compromises the blood-brain barrier, allowing inflammatory molecules and toxins to directly damage neurons. Modern life keeps many people in a constant state of stress, and over time this heightened tension feels normal. People adapt without realizing their brain is being harmed every single day. And now, the most devastating habit of all. Habit number 1. Heavy alcohol consumption. Alcohol is a neurotoxin that directly kills brain cells. Even moderate drinking causes measurable brain damage that accumulates over time, significantly increasing dementia risk. Alcohol crosses the blood-brain barrier within minutes, disrupting neurotransmitter systems and triggering inflammatory processes that damage brain tissue. The landmark Whitehall 2 study from Oxford University analyzed brain scans and cognitive data from 550 participants over 30 years and found that people consuming just 14 to 21 drinks per week had 3 times the risk of hippocampal atrophy compared to non-drinkers. Even moderate drinkers showed accelerated cognitive decline, with no safe threshold identified. A massive Lancet meta-analysis of over 1 million adults found that heavy drinking, more than 21 drinks per week, increased dementia risk by 170%, while moderate drinking raised risk by 17%. Alcohol harms the brain through multiple mechanisms, including direct neurotoxicity, thiamine deficiency leading to Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome, increased inflammation, disrupted sleep, elevated homocysteine, and impaired neurogenesis. A University of Pennsylvania imaging study of 36,678 adults found that moving from 0 to 1 drink per day equated to 2 years of brain aging, with each additional drink adding more. Binge drinking is especially destructive, causing acute brain swelling, damaging white matter pathways, and killing newly formed hippocampal neurons. While some recovery occurs after quitting, certain deficits, especially in executive function, can remain permanent. French National Hospital data analyzing 57 million adults identified alcohol use disorders as the strongest modifiable risk factor for early-onset dementia, accounting for 38.9% of cases under age 65. Alcohol's danger is amplified by its social acceptability and misleading narratives about health benefits. The most rigorous modern research shows that any amount of alcohol causes some degree of brain damage, and any cardiovascular benefits are far outweighed by neurological harm. Every drink withdraws from your cognitive reserve, the buffer that determines when dementia symptoms appear. For heavy drinkers, that reserve can be depleted decades early. Your brain is the most complex structure in the known universe, with 86 billion neurons and trillions of connections shaping everything you think, feel, and remember. These 6 habits don't act alone, they compound each other, accelerating neurodegeneration long before symptoms emerge. The good news is that your brain is remarkably plastic and resilient. Research consistently shows that addressing these habits, even in midlife, can significantly reduce risk and reverse early damage. Every positive choice you make, walking, calling a friend, eating well, managing stress, sleeping better, or reducing alcohol, is an investment in your cognitive future. The real question isn't whether you'll age, but whether you'll age with your memories, personality, and independence intact, or lose them piece by piece to a largely preventable disease. The science is clear. Knowledge without action means nothing. And the time to protect your brain is now. If you found this valuable and want to safeguard not just your brain but your entire future, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss life-changing content. Share this video with someone you care about, because protecting our brains is something we should do together. Let us know your thoughts and experiences in the comments, we love reading them. Thanks for watching. Music,